Hello, this is cjhoyle. Today is Saturday, April 25th, 2020, and I'm standing at the intersection of Davenport Road and Ossington Avenue. Today I'm riding my Linear Limo Recumbent Bike, which has an action camera mounted on the front of it. And in this video I'm going to be riding south and giving a narrated tour of Ossington Avenue here in Toronto. So starting from the northern terminus of Ossington, I'll begin my way heading in the south direction. As you can see, this road sort of slopes down towards the south. Most of Toronto slopes down in the south direction because Toronto's southern border is Lake Ontario, so all the land slopes down towards the lake. Ossington is considered a minor arterial, so it's got, it's a street that goes through where a lot of other ones don't. But it only goes from Davenport as far as Queen. Up ahead we've got an underpass to go below. This is the Canadian Pacific Railway line, the CP Rail. And on the other side of the tracks I'll come back up to ground level, and that's where we cross the traffic light, which is for DuPont Street. I made a video earlier in the year where I gave a narrated tour of DuPont. The majority of Ossington is residential, so there's a lot of houses that are built along it that are kind of similar to what we're seeing right now. But the southern end of Ossington is a commercial strip. There's about a half a kilometer of commercial down at the south end that we'll be seeing near the end of this video. Just about to get a red light for Hallam Street. Hallam is a neighborhood street that is sort of almost in line with another street called Lappin, and they form a signed bike route for getting kind of east-west, which is sort of in between. If you don't want to ride on Bloor and you don't want to ride on DuPont, Hallam and Lappin are a good way to get across, although they don't go that far. But over here on the right you can see there's painted signs, symbols on the road. Those are called sharrows, and they denote that bikes are supposed to ride where the arrow is. Sharrow is the combination of the word sharing and arrow. It's a sharing arrow. An important piece of context to mention is that this video is being filmed in late April of 2020. For the last month and a half, approximately, the humankind has been banding together in our fight against the deadly COVID-19 virus. And that means that schools and businesses and a lot of services are closed right now, which means that people have fewer places to go, and that ultimately results in the roads having less traffic on them, so this road would not normally be this quiet under other circumstances. For those of you who are watching this video right after it's first been posted, of course you're well aware of the realities that we're living through right now, but it's an important piece of context to mention in these videos because this is a series of videos where I'm covering Toronto, and evidently people watch these videos in times after they're posted, and hopefully people will watch this video in the future when COVID-19 is a long, distant memory. We're just about to cross Bloor Street West, and Bloor has a subway which runs underneath of it, and this building over on the right is the Ossington subway station on the Bloor line. Bloor line is officially called the Bloor Danforth line, and it's also known as Line 2. So we're just going to wait for this red light at Bloor, and then we'll continue our way heading south. Coming out from the Ossington subway station, there are buses like the one ahead of us. which run up and down along Ossington. Over on the right is the Ossington Avenue Baptist Church. Under regular conditions, I wouldn't usually ride along Ossington, and the main reason for that is because running parallel to it about a block or so to the east of here is Shaw Street, and Shaw Street has a contraflow bike lane on it, which makes it a very comfortable cycling route. So the land which surrounds Ossington was originally owned by a family with the last name Dennison, and there's a road near Kensington Market, or in the Kensington Market neighborhood, that's called Dennison. But the origin of the name Ossington is that the ancestral home of the Dennison family was Ossington in England, a small village. We're just about to get to the traffic light for Harbord Street. Harbor's another east-west street that I've made a video showing quite a few years ago. Harbord has a buffered bike lane on it, and this is the western terminus of Harbord. If you follow it in the east direction, Harbord becomes and changes names and becomes Hoskin, and beyond there it then becomes, or sort of the bike infrastructure connects up with Wellesley Avenue, which is another east-west street. There's sort of a transition at Queen's Park where you go from Hoskin to Wellesley. All right, there's our green light. So given that Harbor's sort of the end of that bike infrastructure, cyclists usually end up riding on this section right here of Ossington quite frequently, because if you turn right here at Dewson, you can continue going in the west direction on a fairly, not busy road. Quite cycle friendly. So Ossington's sort of the bridge to get from there. Over on the right is, we're going past the schoolyard. That's for Dewson Public School, which is a junior public school. And up ahead, we're going to be crossing College Street, which is another east-west street that I've made a video tour of near the end of last year, 2019. College has a streetcar line which runs along it, and a branch of that streetcar, you can see the tracks merge onto this portion of Ossington. There's no Ossington streetcar that runs along here, but these tracks are used for the other streetcar lines that run perpendicular to it for doing short turns. Over on the right, we're going past the Ossington/Old Orchard Public School, which is another junior public school. And over on the left, there's another school, which is the Pope Francis Catholic School. Right here you can see we're going down a bit of a hill, and then we're going to start coming back up that hill. I mentioned that most of this video would be going downhill, but this one section here is an exception, and that's because through this area there used to be a creek which flowed, and that was called the Garrison Creek. That creek has since been buried and the ravine has mostly been filled in, but there is still a small amount of a slope and a hill from that leftover ravine. Up ahead we're going to be crossing Dundas Street, and interestingly enough, if we were to go back 150 years, and if we were to try and turn left here, we wouldn't be able to, because Dundas Street didn't continue that way, and the reason is because of that Garrison Creek. There was no bridge there. That's one of the reasons, I suppose. But what Dundas actually did was it actually turned and headed south here, so the portion of Ossington that we're about to ride on actually was originally called Dundas Street. So just wait patiently to cross here. You can see the streetcar tracks in Ossington have now ended. And so beyond here, this part of Ossington is very different than the residential parts that I was riding on earlier, and that's because of that history of this being part of Dundas. It was developed more like a main street than how, you know, the residential part that was further north was developed. So this area here is sort of known as the Ossington Strip, and it's a very trendy sort of a neighborhood with a lot of restaurants and bars and shops and stuff. Very common place for people to come who are in their 20s and 30s. Although it had kind of a rough past. I mean, this area was known as sort of a rough neighborhood. If you were to go back, you know, 20 years or so and beyond then. There was a lot of warehouses and stockyards and things. And in fact, back in the 1960s, on the upper floor of one of those automotive shops, Muhammad Ali trained for a number of weeks in preparation for a fight that he had up here in Toronto. Over on the right, there is a building with a fairly high roof with a black section near the top. That was an old fire hall that was built in 1878. I believe the oldest standing fire hall in the city. It's not used as a fire hall anymore. And now we've arrived at Queen Street. So that short section of Ossington that was commercial has now ended. And if we were to go beyond Queen Street here, there is one short little section here which is actually not called Ossington. It's actually called Lower Ossington, which I'm riding on now. And this section surrounding me is part of the CAMH campus. CAMH stands for Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and this facility has been here since 1850, but when it was first built it was originally known as the Provincial Lunatic Asylum, and it's gone through a number of name changes over the years. But here you can see I've arrived at the very southern terminus of Ossington Avenue. Well, anyway, that concludes my narrated tour of Ossington Avenue here in Toronto. If you watched all the way to the end of the video, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.